taking a little bit of a different approach to Home Truths this week. We're getting really close to home. I am joined by Andy, as it's a year since Home was acquired by the PointZeroGroup. So we thought, let's talk mergers and acquisitions and our experience and what that means to our colleagues. Go on then, what was the vision for the acquisition? Take yourself back a year. What were you looking for?
If I'm really honest, I'm not sure I was, because this is Home Truths after all, so I guess I have to be honest. I'm not sure I was looking for an acquisition at that moment in time, but Home is a business I've admired for a long time from afar. I think that your client portfolio and the creative work that I've seen be produced has been second to none. And Home had a fabulous reputation in the Southwest and in the employee engagement market. And when I became aware that the business was in distress, I approached the founder because I felt employee engagement and employee comms fitted perfectly into the PointZeroGroup portfolio. And that's played out quite well. But my vision was that I could see how employee communications and employee engagement and change and transformation and communication, leadership development, and all the work that you've been doing around values and purpose and EVPs fitted just perfectly within our suite of services as a group. And whilst I'd be lying to say it was a strategic decision, it was very much tactical. It's actually worked out to be really good. So, but my vision, having recognised the business was in distress, was to build that suite of services.
That makes sense. So we're a year in. It feels like a long year. So a lot going on, not just at Home, but in the wider world. What's gone really well? Let's start with what's gone well.
I think what's gone really well is that I truly believe that everyone at Home is now fully integrated into the group. And we have got now a group of really talented people. One of the things that really surprised me was that how, of course, you always know that people are good, but actually how really good that everybody at Home was, and the level of talent people had, both in the strategy team, the creative team, the client services team, and the finance team. And your processes and procedures are second to none. And combine that with the sprinkling of creative brilliance. Home was a fabulous agency, and whilst it was in distress, it was a fabulous business, and that was a real surprise. And I think that has gone really well, because I believe now that the people from Home that are still in the group feel fully integrated and feel part of can see the much bigger vision of the group, and can see how we can take great strides forward in the next few years.
That's really interesting for you to call out the people, the clients. It really reflects how I felt when I was about 3 years ago. I rocked up at Home, and yeah, I just remember being like, wow, oh my God, we work with them, and this person's got this experience. It really is. It's quite an exciting thing, isn't it? So that's great. What about the challenges? Let's get Home Truths. What challenges have you faced?
Well,
it's been a year.
It has been a year. Caroline, well, you were on the receiving end of day one, and I think day one was really challenging. And there were. So from the time that we announced that we'd made the acquisition, I think getting people's buy-in and there were some people, as we know, that left the business almost immediately. That was their decision, not mine. I'd much rather they stayed. But the first challenge was to just try and win people's trust, because once you've announced it, people are naturally very sceptical, very cynical. They think that I'm going to come in and rip the heart out of the business. They think I'm going to make people redundant. They think everyone's worried for their job, because it's a human instinct that the first thing you want to do is look after yourself and protect yourself. So that was the first challenge, because to win people over, you can't do in a day, you can't do in a week, probably can't even do in a month. It takes a long time, and we needed to provide some. So the biggest challenge was the people. Closely followed by clients, actually speaking to clients and letting clients know that their service isn't going to change, the people aren't going to change, that the agency's not going to change, because we wouldn't have bought an agency with such a great reputation to completely rip it apart and change it. That would have been silly. So the reason why we made the acquisition, actually speaking to clients and getting them to understand the journey that we're on, was really helpful. But it was a challenge, and it took time to, because again, clients were sceptical. What's going to change? And I think in any change program, as you will know, because this is your job, is communication, and consistency of communication is so key. And that was one of the things that we tried to bring, and absolute brutal honesty. there were lots of questions I didn't know the answer to. But if I was, but I had to be honest and say I don't know the answer. But as soon as I do know, you'll know, and that's kind of that's really important.
And I think for me, it's really interesting to play out something that we're so often advising clients on, and I've certainly lived through myself before, playing out in this kind of microcosm of this SME, and it being exactly the same as it is in a multinational organisation. That you say that you've got to earn trust, you can't tell people, you've got to show them, you've got to evidence it, and you've got to say those honest, upfront things, knowing that you might not win friends in the short term, but you're earning that trust for the long term. So
absolutely, and sometimes there's difficult messages to deliver. Yeah. Sometimes you don't have the answer, but as long as you're honest and say that, and it's been a really interesting journey, and I think the way that people have reacted has been outstanding, and it's been really interesting. Your help when we bought, because we've now got 4 companies in the group, and we did have 4 different contracts of employment. We merged them all into one, and actually using our internal skills that we deliver to our clients every day was invaluable and really helpful.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to put that back on ourselves, hasn't it? Yeah. What have you learnt along the way? What's been your big learnings?
I think I learn every day, and I think one of the things that I love about this job is you do learn every day, and whether you're learning from somebody who was brought in as a creative intern or somebody who has been a head of strategy, I learn from all the different people in the business. I think there are lots of lessons about executing a really successful M&A, and for me, it's around communicate, because if you communicate things once, probably only 10% goes in. Communicate things twice, maybe 20% goes in. You communicate 3, and it's about consistency in communication and time, because it does take 3, 6, 9 months for everything. And I think we had as you know, we got the whole company together only this week. Every time we do that, it feels more and more connected, and it feels more and more like we are one group of people, and we are with a shared purpose and a shared aim, and that just takes time, but it by osmosis, we're starting to feel more and more like a group.
It really has. It's really interesting you say that. We got together this week, and it just felt different this time. There was no, even I was accidentally ended up at the back of the room, and you could see that kind of that people were merged together in where they were sitting. There wasn't that there's all the home team, and there's all the BPZ team, and there's the little agency team. It was totally mixed up, and there was just a natural kind of interaction between the teams. But that takes a bit of time.
And I think the thing that I really enjoyed about last week's meeting was also the vision for bringing employee engagement as a service into the group was around making sure we had a complete suite of employee-related comm services. So we've now got employee experts at home, we've got TLA who do digital and social activation, we've got RPZ who do reward, and we've got Brand Point Zero who do employer brand. And actually, we now have, for every major employer, we can offer value and significant value as a group, and I think that's one of the things that really came home to me only last week, was that I think we're fairly unique in that market. I don't think there are, as the best who I know, globally there are no other groups that offer that range of communication services, and that feels pretty good.
It feels good, doesn't it? Yeah. It really does. Yeah, I certainly feel it on client calls. The amount of times we're talking to our different clients and saying, I've got a new colleague I need you to meet and talk about that. We were doing it only this week, and it's really exciting. It's really good. So last question, any advice, think of either an SME or another leader going through an M&A process, what would your big piece of advice be?
Well, I've got lots of advice on dealing with lawyers during the M&A process, because that's probably for a different podcast, because whenever there's they call them deals, and I don't really like that term, but whenever there's any piece of M&A activity, there are advisors come out of the woodwork to try and help you, because that's what they get paid for, and they naturally just they try and breed conflict, and actually the last thing you want is conflict. So you've got to be really firm with your advisors and say, this is what's happening, and as long as you and the principal of the person you're buying or merging with agree with you, then that works. I think not trying to rush an M&A, and I appreciate I might be repeating myself, but the major lessons are M&As just take a lot of time. They are all-consuming pre-event, and what tends to happen is the principals that are involved, because it is exhausting, and I've done a few, and you do lots of late nights with lawyers and accountants, and you get to signing the deal, and you breathe a sigh of relief and you think it's over. But actually that's when the work starts. And you don't realise, because you've gone through this real peak of activity, that when the deal starts, for you, you've reached, you've delivered what you set out to do, but actually that's when your work starts. Because for everybody else, that's day one of them finding out about it, whilst you've known about it for ages. And you've really then got to go for the next reserve of energy, because you've got to spend so much time with people who have been acquired and from the acquiring company as well, to, as we talked about, build trust and communicate and actually be present. And where, in all honesty, all you want to do is you just want a holiday because you are exhausted. And you've got to, not underestimating the amount of effort required to get a deal over the line, but then to successfully embed the deal, because those first weeks are so important, because that's when decisions are made. That's when that's when employees check in or check out, and they will, and if they check out, it's really hard to get them back. And actually, I would almost, what I tried to do this time was, having done the deal, was leave 24 hours before we told anybody, because I having done this before, I recognised how just the whole emotion of getting a deal done. So we actually, I know this is going out on the 1 year anniversary. This is a truth. The deal was done 24 hours earlier, but I built some time for me and the management team to actually just take a breath before you start again, because actually you've then got a lot of work to do. So that's a little tip. I would that I don't think I've told anyone that. There you go.
Well, they're exclusive here for the team, for all of us. But I think that's really interesting, because we spend a lot of time, we're doing a lot of work with one of our clients at the moment about building leaders who thrive in these kind of relentless change, whether it's M&A or just general business change, employee relations, all that kind of stuff. It's exhausting, like you say. And if you want to show up and do a great job for your people, actually taking a moment to look after yourself, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've said that a year ago. I think I wanted to know what was going on, but yeah.
But rightly so. Yeah. And I think, but when I showed up, you needed to see all of me. You didn't want to see me as a bit of a shell, and actually making that, because I think that's really important, because you've got to be on your A game. Yeah. And you have to be, you're always on. And I think making sure leaders make time for themselves during that, even if it's half a day during that process, I think is really, really important, because it's hard work. M&As aren't easy, and I think there's some statistic that 80% of acquisitions fail, and I'm sitting here a year on going, I think this has worked, and I think we have, I think we've delivered a great group of businesses that work together with great people, great clients, lovely creative work. It's not been without its challenges, and it's not been without its pitfalls along the way. And some really talented people have left the business that probably I wouldn't have wanted them to. But but we are I think we're stronger now than we ever have been.
That feels like a great point to end on. Thanks so much, Randy, for being super honest with us and having some home truths along the way. Thanks.
No problem at all. Enjoyed it.